Hey everyone, my name is Marco from Agora.Studio, and today I wanted to talk to you about quadruped foot animation. If you'd seen Anna's video on how to add weight and compression to a human foot during a walk cycle, I thought I'd give you a couple pointers in the same vein, but for quadruped feet. So before you start, the first thing you want to identify is what kind of foot you have, whether it's a real creature you're animating or a fantastical creature, some kind of created creature. It's usually based off the same kind of feet that we would find in real life. So there's three types of feet to consider. There's the plantigrade, where the heel is touching the ground. That's humans, squirrels, this kind of foot. There's what we call the digigrade, where just the toes are on the ground and the heel is lifted up. You find these kinds of feet on cats, on dogs, this kind of animal. And the last type of foot that we consider is ungulates or unguligrade. This is where just the tip toes, the nails, are on the ground. And that's what we would call a hooved animal, like a cow or a deer. In general, you don't really want to show a lot of compression on an ungulate, unless you're doing something very stylized or cartoony. Then pretty much everything I say applies. But generally, though, those are not very flexible feet. So you want to keep it to these two. So here I want to show you an animation I was working on of a dino boar. I'm not sure what we're calling it, some of the creatures we're developing here. And he's just walking along, but I didn't have a lot of detail in the foot at this stage. So if you look at the foot context, they're feeling like it's working, but it's not quite as strong and as weighty as you would want. You really want to show the impact. You can see very quickly here, the second version I did, where you could look on the feet a little bit closer, and you really kind of feel that the feet are taking the weight of the leg and they're pulling off the ground. So when you look at a real animal, here we have a leopard that's taking a step. There's a couple of things to look at. When the animal takes its feet off the ground, while it's on the ground, you really feel that there's some pressure on that foot, and the toes splay out to sort of take that pressure, as well as the bottom generally compresses. And once they take the weight off, you'll see how the toes close up into a much tighter silhouette. Here the toes are all kind of touching each other. And then it'll step again, and it'll splay out again into a wide kind of pose to sort of spread the pressure and the weight across the foot, and it can hold up the leg and then the body. That's the first major feature you really want to include for pretty much any kind of creature foot, is that you'll notice a difference, just like in Anna's video on humans, that the foot is a little bit more, either the toes are splayed out and there's a bit more compression, and when it's in the air, they're gathered up and there's no more pressure on them. So you really want to show that difference. Another thing that's a little bit more unique to animals is their toes will generally start to anticipate the ground and start to open up before they reach the ground. And that's a subtle little detail that is always nice to put in if you can. So if we try to look at him, you'll see here, I'll try to draw this for you. The toes are all kind of touching. They're closed like this, they're not spread. And the frame right before he touches, you start to see that this pose widens. That's because the toes are starting to open up right before the ground, and then you'll see a big shape change pop where the toes spread out and pop. And then there's a couple of frames of easing as well, various other kinds of compressions. If we look at the animation that I had done, he doesn't have all the same mechanics, so I'm only going to focus on the foot, but sometimes there could be compression up the leg as well. But for this design, I focused on making sure that when the toes were on the ground, they felt spread out. There was a toe spread to show some of that pressure. And then as they lifted up, I'll zoom in a little bit here, they gathered together to a more neutral pose with less space between them. And then when they land again, I made sure that there was a spacing change between the frame right before they land and when they land, they open up a bit. And then over a couple more frames, they can spread out a little bit more. That's a really important detail. That first big spacing change when it first lands, and then a few more frames of ease to show that compression reaching down the leg. Now in this design, I didn't get to show it much, but I definitely showed some scapular compression and a little bit of compression in this little bottom part of the leg, the hock is what I call it, but wasn't really appropriate for this design, but you might want to show it for other kind of creatures. The second part of this is to add squash or actual compression. An elephant's foot, where the bones are a little bit kind of hidden inside of a big kind of fatty, massy foot, you'll see a lot of compression and spreading when it lands. And that felt a little bit more appropriate to this guy. This rig happened to have control that allows for that. I'll show you. But if not, you can use something like Sticky Mod that's free, that you can build yourself a little cluster with appropriate fall off on your foot, and then just animate that scaling in and out as you need. Depends on what your rig offers, but in this case I had that built in. So if you look what I'm trying to do here in this clip, you'll see that when he's landed and has pressure, the foot is flattened out, and then it also sucks in and gathers in. But I'll show you the moment here where it's landing. You can see that he has a squash built in, and so what I can do is actually show that compression with a blend shape that's already built in. But like I said, you could do that yourself. And so that really helps in combination with the toes spreading out and any kind of fatty part or compression shapes that you can build in, depends on the type of foot. You really show a really weighty sort of interaction with the ground. And then the same thing, once it picks up, I'll go back to this video here. Once it picks up, that all kind of reverses. The toes gather back in and the squash goes away. And then you get yourself just a very weighty, interactive foot. And yeah, hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching.